Alright guys, welcome back to another Unreal Engine 5 tutorial video, and today we are going to be talking about branching inside of blueprints. Branching is a blueprint node that allows you to run subsequent blueprint nodes based on a condition. If that condition turns out to be true, then you will follow a certain control flow path. If that condition turns out to be false, then you will run a separate control flow path. These are used in many other programming languages and are often known as conditional statements or flow control, as it's known in Unreal Engine 5, or control flow. A good example of this would be if, elif, else statements in Python, or if, else if, else in Lua, JavaScript, and many other languages. Alright, so that's the introduction. Let's go ahead and look at some examples. So to begin here, I'm going to go ahead and open up my content drawer by holding Control and clicking space. I can also click content drawer right here as well. When this opens up, I can then go to the all, and I can either type in character right here, and I click on this, or I can go into content, third person, blueprints, and character is right here. I'm going to go ahead and open up my third person character, which is right here. I can then toggle between the two screens by either clicking this right here or this right here to toggle between the two. If this popped up like this, then you can simply drag this like so, so it anchors. This is how I generally have my stuff set up for blueprinting. If you don't have it set up this way, you can go to the windows here and click on whatever's missing to get it looking like this. Alright, so let's go ahead and go to our event begin play. This is called, obviously, when the actor is first placed into the scene, or when the game begins to play, / level. Alright, so let's go ahead and create our first branch node here. I'm going to right click and type in branch, just like so. And here is the branch node. Okay, this is what it looks like. You can also get this by holding B on your keyboard and left clicking, and this will pop up. I'm going to go ahead and take my event begin play and drag it into here. Alright, so any little red input or output pin like so inside of the blueprint visual scripting language will always represent a Boolean data type. If you remember from our conversation about data types, a Boolean is a data type that can only take the value of true or false, and that is it. No other values can be taken. Most of the time, when you're setting up a default value for this, you're going to use a check mark, just like so. If the check mark is checked, it's true, and if the check mark is unchecked, it is false. Then based on this condition here, you will run either game logic off of this execution node or this execution node, just like so. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at a nice example here. If it's true, I'm going to print true. And then if the execution pin is false, I'm going to print false. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and connect it right here, just like so. Okay, alright, so if I check this pin right here, I'm going to go ahead and compile and save. And when I click play here, you'll notice I get a nice true up in the corner here. Now that was a little small. Then if I uncheck this pin, compile, save, and I click play, I get false here as well. So that is essentially the basics of what a conditional statement is. Very simple here. Nodes running based off of specific conditions. Now, what's nice about conditional statements is this can also take the value of a variable. So let's go ahead and see here. I can create two numbers. Let's create two numbers here. Let's create a float. So I'm creating a variable here. Let's call this num1, and let's call this num2. Okay, let's go ahead and change these to, let's do integers for now. Okay, compile. Now I'll give this the value of 10, and I'll give this the value of 20. Okay, alright, so now I'm going to check, and I'm going to take num1, I'm going to do a get, and a num2, and I'm going to do a get, and I'm going to check for equality. So I'm going to check and see if these are equal. Okay, now you notice here I have two execution pins, and then it returns a Boolean. It's going to check whether these numbers are equal or not. Okay, so let's just say this was the player's value of health, and let's say this was 0. It's a very good concrete example of this, and using blueprint or the branch node would be if this was health and this was the value 0. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this into here. Now if these two numbers are equal, this will return true, and I will run off the true execution pin. And if it's not, it won't. Okay, so if it's true, then I'm going to go ahead and print true. And if it's false, I'm going to go ahead and print false. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and actually run this so you guys can see, because you'll clearly see here that these two are not equal, thus this will return false, thus this will print to the screen. So one other nice thing about branches, and I really recommend you do this, is you can combine branches on top of branches. So how do I do that? Well, I can just hold B here and make another branch. And this is very similar to our if, elif, and else, where this is going to be our if statement, this will be our elif statement, right? And then an else, pretty much the implementation here would just be dragging this in and going false and essentially having something like this, right? So like you would just have false. So if this was false, then this would be the else case, right? And this is kind of how you can combine branches, which is done a ton, right? So for example, I can come here now and copy this over, paste this right here, and instead of doing equals, we'll do not equal. Boom. Drag these two things in, drag this right here, and now I can go, if this is true, I can print not equal. Boom. Sorry about that, EQUAL. And then I can drag these pins back over into the cast. And here is just a nice good example of, again, using those conditional statements to create some game flow logic. So one more time, the game is going to begin. It's going to check it, see if these two random numbers I created are equal. In this case, they are not, so it will not print this. Instead, it will go to this execution pin and it will print these are not equal, so this will return true, and it will say not equals. And then if all other cases failed, you could even print something like error detected. Right, and this would be your else case. So this is the if, elif, else. And that's how you can kind of think of this if you are from another programming language. Let's go ahead and compile this and run this so we can see what happens. I go ahead and click play here, and as you can see in the top left hand corner, I'll click play again. You'll get not equals, which is exactly what we expected. Alright, so that's pretty much the basics here. Last thing I'm going to do to wrap up this video is just show you guys how you can use this to create some interesting game movement. So much more of a example here where you can actually create some really cool game movement and make it cool and awesome. Alright, let me go ahead and compile this. Alright, boom boom. So I'm going to go to the content drawer here, and I'm going to go to inputs, I'm going to go to actions, and I'm going to create a action. Let's call it, I guess we can do super jump again. I did super jump in the last one, so I'll just do that one again. Okay, so I'll call this IA underscore super jump. Okay, this action then needs to be mapped to this here, the mappings. So I'm going to go ahead and add a super jump now. Come here, IA super jump. We'll trigger this with the caps lock button for whatever reason. I'll just do that. You can add as many mappings here as you want. I'll just do that for now. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and save this. Now I'm gonna come into here. Okay, and then I'm just gonna come here and type in super jump. Boom, and there is the input action. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of these old variables here, and I'm gonna create a new variable here called jump power, and this will be a float, and or better jump power, I guess, jump power super, and then jump power normal. Boom. I'm also going to create an int here and call it cooldown. And then I'm going to create a boolean here and call it did jump. And I sometimes put a question mark here if you want. And then I'm going to create a category here and call these all super jump. That way I have a nice classification for my variables and I don't have to worry about naming them. So super jump. Yep, boom. Boom. Come on. Boom. And then I can come to this guy. Super jump. Super jump. Super jump. Alright, so if you don't know what this node is, I made an entire video on this last time, so just go check that out. Link for this entire playlist will be in the description below. But essentially, whenever super jump is triggered, I want to go ahead and create a branch. So I'm going to hold B and click, and I'm going to create a branch. And essentially, it's going to check if the player did jump. Okay, normally the get jump value will be false because we don't want them starting with they did super jump, right? So if this is true and they did jump, then we want nothing to happen. If they have not jumped, then we're going to go ahead and start doing things. We're going to grab the character movement component right here, and we're going to go ahead and off of this, we're going to set the max or jump z velocity, I think it is, jump z velocity, just like so. Boom. Then we're going to come back to our blueprints here, and we're going to grab super jump, just like so, and drag it into here. So we're setting the super velocity here, boom, and using the character movement pin just like so. All right, then we're going to go ahead and grab jump. Boom. This is going to have the character jump, just like that. So if the jump is true, then they're going to go ahead and do this. And then after the character jumps, we want to go ahead and set this now to true because they did jump. Okay. Then we're going to want to go ahead and delay. So we're going to do delay node here. And I'm going to create one more variable here, which is our cooldown. Oh, nope, I already created a cooldown. My mistake. Here it is. Boom, get cooldown. Yeah, and this is a typecast here. It typecasts for me. So when the cooldown is completed, we're going to then set the jump back to false. Cool. All right. Then when this is all completed, we just want to stop jumping. Boom. And there's a pretty much a very nice creation of just using some blueprint logic here. Last thing as well, I'm going to go ahead and grab this again, setting the target to the character move component, and after the stop jumping is done, I'm going to set the jump power back to normal. And there you go. Boom, boom. And if you wanted to actually be a little bit more precise here, you may actually want to set all of this up after the stop jump is done. So like right here, like so. And we'll actually go ahead and just disconnect this node here, duplicate this, and drag this up. Drag him right here. And there you go. So there's just a very nice example of using a conditional statement right here. If the jump is false, then we're going to set the jump velocity here, jump, and then we're going to set the jump to true. Then after this is completed, they stop jumping. We have a delay timer, and then we set the jump to false, and we set the jump velocity back to jump normal. The only other thing I would do as well is I would just come here and I would grab that character movement component one more time, all of this right here. Paste it right here, get rid of this node, and we're just going to drag this to this and drag this to this. That way, whatever we want our normal jump to be, it's set on the init of the game, so that way there isn't any weirdness going on. And I'm going to go ahead and compile. Let's set up our values here. So super jump should probably be something like 1,000 centimeters in the air. I think the default is like 700. We'll set it to 600. Cooldown, we'll make it 5 seconds. And the jump is set to false. All right, let's go ahead and look at this in action now. Go ahead and play, and I click caps lock, and there's my super jump, and then I can't use it, but I can normal jump. And there it is again. Boom. And there you go, guys. There's a nice little example of all of this in context. So if you had any questions on this video or this blueprint script, please let me know in the comments, and I will see you all in the next one.